The day my daughter turned 6 was supposed to be soft, warm, full of pink balloons, vanilla frosting, and the kind of laughter that makes a house feel alive. Instead, it became the day my brother reminded me exactly who he had always been. I still remember the way the sunlight poured through our backyard that afternoon, turning the white tablecloths gold. My little girl, Lily, ran barefoot across the grass in her birthday dress, her curls bouncing as she laughed with her friends. She looked like joy in its purest form, and I stood there watching her, smiling, thinking maybe life had finally become gentle. My husband, Ethan, had come home the night before after 3 months away. He was a marine pilot, the kind of man who carried storms in his silence and peace in his hands. He missed birthdays, school recitals, quiet dinners, but when he was home, he was fully there, fully ours. That morning, he had helped Lily hang paper lanterns in the yard. He let her smear frosting on his cheek while decorating cupcakes. He wore that calm smile of his, the one that always made me feel safe. For 1 perfect hour, everything felt whole. Then my brother Daniel arrived. Daniel had always been the kind of man who entered a room like he owned. The air in it, loud, sharp, restless. He wore his confidence like armor, and his cruelty like habit. Growing up, he had a way of making every celebration feel like a stage built for him. And somehow, I had spent years pretending that was just who he was. He showed up late, carrying no gift, already irritated. His voice was too loud, his smile too thin. He barely looked at Lily when she ran to greet him. "Happy birthday." "Sweetheart," he said flatly, handing her a wrinkled card like it was an obligation. I noticed. Ethan watching him from across the yard, quiet, reading him the way he read weather before takeoff. I should have known then. The moment came so fast, it still lives in me like broken glass. Lily was opening presents in the backyard while everyone circled around her. Daniel was standing too close to the table, already annoyed because someone had asked him to move so the children could sit. Then Lily reached for the large birthday cake too early, her tiny hand brushing the stand. The cake tilted. It didn't fall. Ethan caught it in time from across the table, but Daniel snapped anyway, his face twisted with anger. And, before anyone could react, he turned and struck Lily hard across her small shoulder. Not enough to knock her down. Enough to silence the entire yard. Enough to make my daughter freeze in shock. Enough to make something inside me stop breathing. Her little face changed instantly. Not just pain, confusion. The kind that shatters you more than tears. And then Daniel said the words that made the room go cold. "She needs to learn not to ruin everything." I felt my body go numb. But what Daniel didn't know that day was that the man standing beside me had spent his life staying calm in chaos. And when Ethan finally spoke, his voice was so controlled, it was terrifying. Nobody moved. Not my mother. Not the neighbors. Not the children. Lily just stood there, one small hand clutching her dress, her eyes wide and wet, trying to understand why the man everyone called family had hurt her on her birthday. I dropped to my knees and pulled her into my arms. She didn't cry right away. That was the worst part. She just trembled against me, silent and stunned, like her little heart was trying to catch up with what had happened. And Daniel rolled his eyes, as if he had done nothing wrong, as if my daughter's pain was an inconvenience. That was when Ethan stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't shove him. He simply placed the cake down. wiped frosting from his hand, and looked Daniel dead in the eye with the kind of stillness that makes grown men uneasy. Then he said, very calmly, "You just put your hand on my daughter." Daniel laughed, actually laughed. "Oh, please," he muttered. "I barely touched her. She's spoiled. Someone has to teach her." The yard went silent in a way I had never heard before. Ethan took one step closer. "You will never," he said, his voice low and exact, "teach my daughter anything except what kind of man she should never trust." Daniel's smirk faltered. I had seen Ethan angry before, but this was different. There was no heat in him, no chaos, just precision. That frightened Daniel more than shouting ever could. Still, Daniel did what men like him always do when they begin losing control. He got louder. He pointed at me. "This is why she turned out weak. You always let women make everything emotional." And there it was. Not just cruelty. Contempt. For me, for my daughter, for every woman in the room who had spent years shrinking themselves to survive his temper. I saw something shift in my mother's face then. Shame, maybe. Or the weight of finally seeing what she had excused for too long. Daniel kept going, because silence had never taught him caution. "She's a child," he snapped. "She'll forget it." Ethan looked at him for a long moment. Then he said the words that changed everything. "No." She remembered the day her uncle hit her. And she remembered the day her father made sure it never happened again. Daniel's jaw tightened. He took a step forward, puffing himself up with that same old arrogance he had used his whole life to bully softer people. Then he made his mistake. He shoved Ethan. Just once. A sharp, reckless push meant to humiliate him in front of everyone. Ethan barely moved, but Daniel did, because in one smooth motion, Ethan caught his wrist, turned him off balance, and dropped him to the grass so fast the entire yard gasped. Not violently, not brutally, just enough to end the performance. Daniel hit the ground with all his pride exposed. Ethan stood over him, calm as ever. "You confuse intimidation with strength," he said. "They are not the same." Daniel's face burned red. For the first time in his life, he looked small. And still, Ethan wasn't done. He looked at my mother, then at every guest, and said, "If anyone here still believes family means tolerating abuse, today is the day to unlearn it." That was the moment the room changed. Not because Daniel fell, but because everyone finally stopped protecting him from the truth. Daniel got up, red-faced and humiliated. Brushing grass from his shirt like dignity could be wiped back on. But no one rushed to comfort him. No one defended him. Not this time. My mother, the same woman who had spent decades excusing his temper with tired phrases like, "That's just how he is," stepped forward with tears in her eyes and said, something I never thought I'd hear. "Leave." Daniel blinked. "Mom, leave," she repeated, stronger this time. "And don't come back until you understand what you've become." I think that hurt him more than the fall, because men like Daniel survive on permission. And for the first time in his life, no one gave him any. He looked around the yard, expecting someone to save him, to laugh it off, to soften the moment, to hand him back the power he had always stolen. No one did. Then he left. No slammed door. No final threat. Just the quiet walk of a man realizing his control had ended in front of everyone who used to fear him. The party was broken after that. The balloons still floated. The cake was still standing. The music still played somewhere in the background. But everything had changed. I carried Lily inside and sat with her in our room while Ethan knelt in front of her, still in his pressed uniform, still carrying that impossible calm. He looked at her gently and said, "What happened today was not your fault, and no one gets to hurt you because they are angry." Lily stared at him for a long moment, then asked in that small, trembling voice only children have, even family. Ethan's face softened. "Especially family," he said. She nodded like she understood something far older than her years. That night, after the guests were gone and the house had gone quiet, I stood in the kitchen staring at half-cut cake and paper plates, and the wreckage of what should have been a simple day. Ethan came behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist, and rested his chin on my shoulder. "I should have stopped him sooner," I whispered. He held me tighter. "No," he said. "Today, everyone finally saw him clearly. That matters too." And he was right. Because revenge did not come in shouting. It did not come in broken bones or louder cruelty. It came in exposure, in witnesses, in the silence that followed when no one defended him anymore. Daniel lost something that day he may never get back. Not his pride, not his balance, his audience, and men like him are nothing without one. Lily still remembers that birthday, but not only for what was taken from her. She remembers the moment she learned something powerful, that love protects, that silence can be broken, and that the people who hurt you being family does not make their cruelty sacred. Some betrayals break your heart. Others finally open your eyes.